Hello, my name is Talia White, and I'm with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library Foundation. And I would like to welcome Sherry Verts and Diane Kira with Penguin Random House. They're going to share with you some of their picks to add to your summer reading list. If you did not pre-register and would like to get a list of the books that they're going to be sharing with you, it's not too late. You simply need to go to foundation.cmlibrary.org and you can register there and we'll send you the list of books tomorrow. We would love to know what you think about the titles that they're going to be sharing today. So please feel free to comment below on all the different titles that they're going to be sharing. And we're going to do a giveaway. So as you comment on the different titles, we're going to randomly draw names tomorrow to give you one of Penguin Random House's books. So we're really excited about that. And so we're looking forward to hearing from both Diane and Sherry. And just to let you know, they have sent lots of authors to us for our Verse and Vino event, including, this is a long list, Hampton Sides, Kathy Reichs, Debbie Maycomer, Chris Bajillion, H.W. Brands, Tom Rinaldi, Jamie Ford, Paula McLean, Elliot Ackerman, Casey Gerald, and Karen Abbott. And so we are so excited that they have continued to support us with Verse and Vino, which we will be having again this year on November 5th. Stay tuned. We will be sending out more information in July about this year's event. So we get on our mailing list if you aren't already, and we'll be glad to send you more information about that. So this is a happy hour. So cheers to you, Sherry and Diane. And with that, let's go to the summer reading list. But first, if you will share with us about yourself, how long you've been with Penguin Random House, and how does Penguin Random House intersect with libraries?
Well, my name is Sherry Verts. I am based in Maryland. I cover the stores in North Carolina, Maryland, and DC. I've been with the company in August, will be my 30th anniversary, which I'm very excited about. It seems hard to believe that summer job so long ago is still my career that I love every day. I started working with Karen about 6 or 7 years ago with the Verse and Vino event. We connected through your local Parkword Books in Charlotte. So it's been wonderful. If you've never attended Verse and Vino, I highly recommend it. It is just one of my favorite events of the entire year. For Diane.
Alrighty, I'm Diane Kirpa. It's certainly a pleasure to present to you folks today. We've been looking forward to it. I started with the company. It was at that time called Putnam Berkeley Publishing in 1992. So Sherry is my senior by a couple of years. And at that time, I was the New York City sales rep for the company. So I covered the 5 boroughs of New York and a little bit up the Hudson Valley as well. And then my husband's job took us down to Swanee, Georgia, and that's when I started representing 2 bookstores and wholesalers in the Southeast. I do just a slice of North Carolina, but I also do Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, Alabama. And so needless to say, a lot of traveling. And then 2 years ago, my husband retired and we decided to move full-time to our beach house, quote unquote, in Panama City Beach. So we're in the Panhandle, just a little bit west of Panama City, a little bit east of Destin. It's beautiful down here, so come on down anytime.
That's great.
Well, and I think, I'm sorry, just to answer your question, how Penguin Random House intersects with the libraries. I just think the basis, no matter what the outlet is connecting authors with readers, and no matter how that goes. And the libraries are such an important role in every single community that Random House has a lot of initiatives to just support reading in the community with the library, the wonderful library systems.
Great. Well, we're
definitely well said, Sherry. Just one additional thing. I'm not 100% sure what Sherry does in addition, but there's 3 of us reps who represent in Atlanta, and we have a big show each year, and I don't know if we'll do it this year because of the coronavirus situation, but at the Decatur County Library just outside of Atlanta. And that's a big, big event for us. And anything we can do to share and help with libraries becoming aware of our books is great.
Great. Well, we're excited for y'all to share your titles and can't wait to add to my own personal summer reading list. So I'll let y'all take it away.
Okay, I will jump right in with Conjure Women by Afia Achikora. This released in April. I think one of the highlights of my job as a rep is the opportunity to get to meet just amazing writers. Afia is definitely a new voice to watch. I think we're going to see a lot of talent coming from her through the year. She had just graduated college, so you read this book and you have to remind yourself that it is a debut novel. Conjure Women sweeps across eras and generations to tell a story of a mother and daughter with a shared talent of healing and the conjuring of curses. She delivers beautiful prose with remarkable psychological insight into people and the lengths that they will go to save themselves and those that they love. I think some of the themes it touches on are the intimate bonds and transgressions among people across racial divides during both slavery time and free time. And I enjoyed the way the novel unfolded because the narrative moves back and forth in the years prior to the Civil War and then the couple years after the Civil War. So this is Conjure Women by Afia Achikora. Okay.
Alrighty, on my side of things, we have Sue Monk Kidd's newest book, The Book of Longings. This was published, about 2 months ago now, and has done terrifically well. And speaking of meeting authors, I have had a couple of chances to meet Sue when she was living over outside of Charleston, South Carolina. But we were so excited when she brought her new novel to us, The Book of Longings. And you know her from Secret Life of Bees, of course, published about 18 years ago now. Time has gone by. But in all of her novels, what she does so well is to set them in a very, very authentic setting of time and place. And she's certainly done that here as well. Historical, of course. And she places us in the time and life of Jesus, but told from the viewpoint of a young girl who's in the household of King Herod. And Anna is in a situation where she's in a arranged marriage, but she's able to avoid that. And by means of a chance meeting with an 18-year-old young man who turns out to be Jesus, she establishes a relationship. The result is a fictional marriage of Anna and Jesus, and certainly their journey through the turbulent times of vast political and religious upheaving. So Sue has created this novel, I think, out of a feeling that we need the story of Anna today. It gives Sue a vehicle to write about the feminine and feminine issues and about religiously ingrained attitudes towards women, marriage, and family. I will mention that Sue has done an afterword, which I think offers great insight into her point of view in this novel. So she makes the argument that Jesus's marriage, despite church assumptions and teaching, it was not only possible, but quite likely in the mores and mores of the day. Thank you.
And the next book, A Burning by Megha Majumdar. I always get it tongue-tied, Majumdar. This was it came out as a new release 2 weeks ago. It was picked by Jenna Bush's Today's Show book club pick for June, and it has already received a front page glowing New York Times review. This is a literary page turner about 3 young Indians, their lives bound by a terrorist attack, and dealing with class, fate, and corruption, and what it feels like to be powerless in a country that's spinning out of control. I think what struck me about this, although it is set in India, I think this novel we could all connect to it, no matter if it was taking place stateside in Africa or whatever point of the globe that you're reading. And again, her writing, I am just so amazed when these first time authors come in and deliver such a powerful novel. You love the characters, you get frustrated with them throughout the way, but that just, I think, shows how invested she makes you in the storyline. I think this would appeal to readers if you read Ya Gaizi or Jhumpa Lahiri, and that isn't a light comparison that I would make, but I think Mega really stands up to those authors. Okay, and the next book, this is a novel I feel like I have been talking about for months and months. I think that's one of the perks and disadvantages with this job. Sometimes we may read a book a year before it actually gets into the hands of the public. So you have to remind yourself that, oh, wait, this is really a new release. This is going to land June 30th, and this is going to be my pick as the summer buzz book. The author will be featured also on June 27th with Scott Simon's NPR Weekend Edition. So again, it kind of shows you the chops of the writer to be featured on NPR. So Naomi has a fierce heart. She's stubborn and strong-willed. She will need to draw on all of it to survive the high place. The creepy family, the too charming heir apparent, the overprotective matron, all make up this wonderfully creepy story. The story draws from indigenous lore, and it's filled with vibrant Mexican beauty. There's more to the story than you initially think, and it is the underlying sinister drive to it that really propels the reader further into the horror and understanding. But it's not the kind of horror that you have to keep a light on when you go to sleep at night. So it's definitely one Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia.
Can we zip back to the burning just for a quick second?
Yes.
Can you go back to that 2 slides? I just wanted to mention the author of Burning. She's involved with a publishing company, a small press called Catapult Press. The Penguin Random House has just signed on as a distribution client. So what that means is that we represent to the bookstores and wholesalers to the same degree that we do for our own authors and imprints, the new books coming from that small press. So why do we care? Well, this is starting in January, and one of their new authors is a novelist who's written her first novel. The title is called Bewilderness. She lives in Asheville, so hopefully she'll get down to Charlotte if we're doing in-store, in-library appearances then. But do look for Bewilderness, and that's coming, I believe it's either March or April next year. And then if you could go forward to The Last Kings of Shanghai. This is nonfiction and really gives us an eye vision into what we sometimes think of as a monolith of China, that it's all the same. Well, it certainly isn't. Kaufman has written 2 other histories as well, all dealing with world Jewish issues and histories, if you will. But this one is the multi-generational story of 2 families from Baghdad who had come to China in the mid-1800s. The one family is Sassoon and the other is Kaduri. And these Jewish dynasties operated in Shanghai in politics and economics for well over 175 years through the Opium Wars, the Japanese occupation in World War II, and of course the communist ascension into power. And of course today the news is dominated by global companies that make compromises to do business in China. So these 2 dynasties were doing that about almost 200 years ago and doing it very, very successfully. And the choices they make still echo into what our companies and what we have to decide about China today. One of the most affecting chapters in here as well is that the 2 families who are kind of rivals, actually more than kind of rivals, but they joined forces to save more than 18,000 Jewish refugees from Europe during World War II. So very fascinating. It's a to delve into a very, very important history of the second biggest economy and certainly our biggest rival.
I always love these presentations. No matter how many books I'm surrounded by, I hear somebody else talking and I add another one to my pile. So the next novel, Aria by Nazin Hazar, is coming out in August. This is another debut novel about life in Iran from the early 1950s to the early 80s, focusing on the life of one orphan girl, Aria, and the unexpected path her life takes. Great quotes have already come in for this novel from Margaret Atwood and John Irving. Hozar was born in Iran, but moved with her family to Canada during the Iranian Revolution when she was 7. And this book has already been a bestseller in Canada when it released there. Okay. And the next book, it has been long awaited, David Mitchell's new novel, Utopia Avenue. This comes out next week, or no, next month, July, in the middle of July. He's the author of Cloud Atlas and Bone Clocks, and fans have just been at the edge of their seats waiting for his new novel, but I can guarantee you it was worth the wait. And I think it's a good book for our time because it is just this great wild escape. His books always, you're invested in it. It's his, just the way he can spin a story is like nobody else that I've read. So this centers around, it plunges into the world of the swinging 60s in London. It's a moment that persists as one of the special times in our cultural history. We follow a folk rock group as they rise to fame and then contend with an unexpected tragedy at the close of the decade. Music, parties, drugs, wearing egos, and pitfalls of youth and fame. Plus, there are some highly entertaining cameos of real life music icons that appear in the book. You will definitely recognize them. And it's interesting because it's like all of the music icons are basically the ones that have speaking parts throughout the book. So again, his just writing style always uncovers so many layers. He is also going to create a playlist for social media that will be available, and David Mitchell actually wrote all of the songs that tie in with the novel as you go along. So that kind of reminds me of what we did with Daisy Jones and the Six, because it just lends itself to having the music playing in the background. So that's Utopia Avenue, coming out mid-July.
We love Britt Bennett. She came on the scene with her first novel 4 years ago. It was called The Mothers. And it was told from alternating points of view of 4 young women, or in one case, middle-aged women, who were struggling with the vicissitudes of today's life, with poverty, with the drug influences, but focused around their families and their concept of motherhood. And her follow-up to this first book 4 years ago is The Vanishing Half, which is doing very, very, very well. It's actually #1 on the New York Times list right now, and also on the independent bookstore best-selling list. So it's enjoying great success. So this, The Vanishing Half, deals with racial identity and bigotry, and speaks of 2 sisters, twin sisters, and focuses on almost 50 years of their lives. Their names are Desiree and Stella. They're raised in a small fictional town a couple of hours outside of New Orleans. Now, this town was founded by the great-great-great-grandfather, who was a freed slave, but he had this issue too with preferring Black people, but who are light-skinned. So he formed this town, or encouraged people to come to this town who had light skin but were African American. So he describes it, or the twins described it, that their skin is like a cup of coffee steadily diluted with cream. So as these girls went into age 15 or 16, they had a very, very difficult time in this town. And they both contrived to leave and go to New Orleans and separate to their own paths. So after a year in New Orleans, they do that. And what follows for the bulk of the novel is the story of these two girls. They go very different ways. One identifies as white and the other as Black or African American. And it's the journey of one sister to find and reconnect with the other sister over the next, say, 40 years or so. Just wonderful writing, and Britt Bennett's going to be with us for a long time.
Pizza Girl. This is another debut novel that is totally voice driven. And the given voice is that of a pregnant, floundering, and almost alcoholic Korean American teenager who delivers pizza for a living and becomes obsessed with one of her customers. It's quite a voice. This is for fans that love novels like Aleph Bateman's The Idiot or Sayaka Murata's Convenience Store Woman, which continues to be one of my favorites. It's offbeat, but it has surprising depth and heart throughout the novel. And the fun fact on the jacket, it was designed by the same guy who designed the logo for the author's favorite pizza place in her hometown in Los Angeles. So, kind of a fun backstory. Doubleday, the publisher of this book, tracked him down and commissioned him just to do this book jacket. So, that's a fun fact, and that's Pizza Girl. Okay, It Is Wood, It Is Stone by Gabriella Burnman. BuzzFeed has already pegged this as one of the most anticipated books of the year. One World will be publishing this on June 30th of this year. It's an exquisite debut by a young Brazilian American author called Gabriella Burnman. It's about women whose romantic and subversive entanglements reflect on class, colorisms, sexuality, and complex, divisive histories. It has sharp, gorgeous prose. It takes place over the course of a year in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in which the two women's lives intersect. The two women are drawn into a seductive web of privilege, displacement, sexuality, and other mysteries of the heart. It's a magnetic debut. It's a young Brazilian American author to watch. If you're familiar with our recent release of Sabrina and Karina, I felt the style of writing and the voice was similar to that. And I think this has one of the best covers. It really pops. It's lush, and in person, it's even more lush. So check it out. It is wood. It is stone.
And my next title to present is Heaven and Earth by Paolo Giordano. You might not be familiar with him, but you will be even more next year. In 2021, HBO is airing a miniseries that he created and co-wrote called We Are Who We Are. That's an 8-parter coming. It's a coming-of-age story. It's set on an American military base in Italy. But perhaps you remember Paolo from his 2010 novel published here called The Solitude of Prime Numbers. And the title refers to prime numbers, which of course can only be divided by themselves or by the number 1. And the two lead characters who are deemed as primes and misfits, and whose relationships bring emotions and their resolution to the surface. His newest novel, Heaven and Earth, follows many of the same themes that Giordano has written about over the years. It's a novel of young people. First, there's Teresa, who's coming of age on her father's farm in Puglia, Italy. And then on an adjoining farm, there's 3 boys who are bonded together. We don't know why at the beginning, but we certainly, that is revealed as the novel progresses. And she meets these boys almost by chance. She's attracted to one of them and consummates her relationship with him. And maybe or maybe not breaking the bond amongst the other 2 boys, or the 3 boys in total. And then the novel takes us on the next 20 years with overlapping friendships and resentments, and just finding out what happened and what's most important in your life belief and your life story.
The Inheritors by Asako Serizawa. This will be out July the 14th. It's a collection of interconnected stories that can almost be read like a novel, stretching from the early 1900s to around 2050. It's about the long reaching effects of war on one Japanese family, but there and in the US. It's full of brilliant understanding of the human condition and heavy with emotional and historical impact. This is going to make some noise upon its release. I think the best comp in terms of both literary heft and likely attention is probably Julia Phillips' Disappearing Earth, or going back a little ways, the works of Julie Otsaka, When the Empire Was Divine, and The Buddha in the Attic, which are two of my all-time favorites. This is The Inheritors by Asako Serizawa. Now to take you to a work of nonfiction, The Sirens of Mars. This is on sale July the 7th. Sarah Stewart Johnson, there's a lot going on with Mars in the coming year. I think we are going to see 5 separate rovers worldwide head to Mars. And so I think there's something that it's going to be discovered at every turn. What I liked about this, it's so readable and an entertaining history of Mars, including what humanity has believed through the ages and what we know now. The book chronicles Johnson's love of and the work with Mars and offers her perspective as a key participant in the search for life on Mars and as a woman in a male-dominated field. From Sharapella to Sagan, Johnson offers new perspectives on some of astronomy's greats, while also introducing us to lesser-known, often eccentric figures in the annals of the Mars exploration. Johnson's background, she's a polymath with degrees in mathematics, environmental science, philosophy, politics, economics, biology, and a PhD in planetary science from MIT. Nothing like making you feel like a slacker when you look at her list of credentials. And this is another that I think the art department did a great job. I read the book in electric form, and then they show us the covers later, and I was just dreading that it would be like the bright red Mars photo that's so iconic with other books. So I think this is going to really set itself apart from the other books that will be out. And that's The Sirens of Mars.
I absolutely love this book. Of course, I love all my books. It's like choosing your favorite child. Very frustrating sometimes. We published this last year in hardcover, and it's available, I think, either very, very shortly, or it might have just been published in paperback under the title Something to Live For. It's a novel from a British author, Richard Roper. He's a presenter, a TV figure, a radio figure, and a columnist in the UK. And he's written a novel of British humor here for sure. It concerns Andrew Smith. He's the lead character. And turns out he's the sole mourner at a pauper's funeral for a man who's passed away alone in the council flat. Andrew's job is as death administration for the council, and it's his duty to reconcile the belongings and locate the next of kin of those who pass in public housing without a parent next of kin. So he's sort of a cleaner upper, if you will. But he isn't required to attend the services, but he always shows up. He feels it's his duty. He's hoping his presence dignifies the person who has passed lonely end, and he's right on that. Andrew is sort of introduced as a very thoughtful and tenderhearted person, but he has a huge flaw. He turns out to have told the monster of all lies early in the book. And I won't give that lie away, but it's key to the book. And the novel really concerns, in a very humorous way, of Andrew overcoming this mistake he made. Nobody was really hurt by it other than himself, but he needs to straighten that out over the course of the book. It's a very warm-hearted novel, very dry, British sense of humor. And if anyone has read Eleanor Oliphant, is completely fine. This would be a great book to move on to from Eleanor.
Evie Drake starts over, and yes, you pronounce her name Evie just like Chevy, by Linda Holmes. She is the host of NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour podcast that if you have never checked it out, it's worth a listen. Evie Drake starts over. This is one that came out in hardcover last year, and the paperback just landed on June the 2nd. And I think this is another great one to put in your summer beach bag. It's set in a small town in Maine. It recently widowed Evie rarely leaves the house. Everyone in town, including her best friend Andy, thinks grief is what's keeping her inside, and she just doesn't take the energy to correct them. While she's trying to move on with her life, in New York, Dean Tenney, former Major League Baseball pitcher and Andy's childhood friend, is struggling. He just can't throw straight anymore and can't figure out why. He is being ridiculed by the media and just needs to escape. So he ends up going to Maine to escape everything, figure out what can make him throw again. So, what I liked about this novel is the way Evie and Dean's friendship built. They didn't tell each other too much. They were just happy with this friendship, somebody to drink coffee with in the morning, and then it just builds from there. This did receive a Kirkus starred review when it came out in hardcover, and to me, it had elements of Liz Strout's novel, the way that the characters are just so easy, so relatable. There's nothing extraordinary that happens through the book. It's just a well told story, and you connect with the characters. There's a few mysteries throughout because you do find out later through the novel that Evie has been carrying this secret around the circumstances of when her husband had passed away that fateful evening. So Evie Drake starts over, Linda Holmes.
My next title is The Death of Vivek Oji. The author, Wiki Amezi, returns now to adult literary fiction with this title. After last year's YA novel, Pet. Pet was a finalist for the National Book Award for Young People's Literature, and she was awarded the status of a 5 under 35 honoree by the National Book Foundation. Very, very talented young writer. She is from Nigeria. The book, The Death of Vivek Oji, is set in Lagos, Nigeria, and we have no doubt of what happens to Vivek as the novel begins. Quote, "They burned down the market on the day Vivek Oji died." Then Vivek's story is gradually revealed. Vivek is born a male, but as he progresses through his teen years, his self-identification and sexual identity shifts. His and then what becomes her story is told from the viewpoint of Osita, who is a female cousin, and from his mother, and from other members of her immediate family. The author, Amezi herself, is transitory non-binary, and she has written very movingly of her identity, and this article is online of Transition, called Transition, which she wrote for New York Magazine. As I said, she was born in Nigeria and now resides in New Orleans.
Veritas, a Harvard professor, a con man, and the Gospel of Jesus' Wife by Ariel Saber. This will be coming out August 11th from Doubleday Publishers. It's narrative nonfiction, investigative journalism, true crime, religion, a sensational yet serious story about the supposed discovery of a lost gospel. This one saying that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married, and the uproar fallout it caused at Harvard and beyond. Saber has won the National Book Critics Circle Award for his autobiography in 2009 for My Father's Paradise. So I expect to see a lot of review attention and a lot of media coverage on morning shows for this one, and that will be coming out in August. Greenwood by Michael Christie. This is not a new book. It released back in February, which seems like a lifetime ago now, but I always feel that it's always a new book if you haven't read it yet. And this one, it's a doorstop. It's about 800 pages, but I swear, as I was reading this, you would have just never known, because his writing is just amazing. There were times in the narrative that I literally could smell the trees and I felt like I was in the middle of the forest. I think this will appeal to anybody that enjoyed the overstory, but we don't have as many talking trees in this one. So the Greenwood's tale sweeps us backwards through the Greenwood family tree. It's filled with liars, romantics, capitalists, and criminals. The book opens in 2034. Jake Greenwood is an overqualified tour guide babysitting ultra-rich vacationers in one of the world's last remaining forests. And then the story goes back through that. So you follow the lineage of this forestry family, and there are elements of global warming, conservation, but I like the way that he unfolds it. It's not like beating you over the head for what you're doing. You see this gradual decline to where, there is only one forest left in the world, and back to when the family began in the 30s. As a lumber company. So it's just twists and turns, it's mystery, it's narrative, literary. This is just really one of my favorite novels of the year, Greenwood by Michael Christie. Okay, and sorry about that, I lost my place. The Happily Ever After by Avi Steinberg. This is a memoir about all the wacky things that Steinberg, a journalist who's published 2 earlier books with us, did to become a romance novelist. It's a comic memoir about writing sincere romances, which has a happy ending as he now has a 2-book deal with Kensington for a new Amish romance series that's going to be published under a pseudonym. It will be releasing just in time for 2020's Bookstore Romance Day. This is a humorous yet respectful take on the genre and the people who love it. And that's The Happily Ever After that's on sale August 11th.
Daisy Johnson was the youngest writer ever shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize in 2018 for her first novel, Everything Under. It had taken her 4 years to write that. It was a love of labor, for sure. Labor of love, I should say. With the success of that, she's enabled herself to write full time. And she wrote Sisters in less than a year. And it combines kind of modern trends, I guess, leading to a horror a little bit, but not a full-out horror novel. It's the Sisters is the story of the sisters whose names are July and September. They're 15 and 16 years old, and their mother, Sheila, who is suffering from depression. The setting is Oxford, England, and also the Yorkshire coast in England. And a series of incidents ominously begin with July being cyberbullied, and the mother, Sheila, takes them to the isolated seaside cottage where the mother withdraws into her depression. And the sisters are left to their own devices and begin a dangerous psychological game called September Says, kind of like Simon Says, but June must do everything that September says. So after that, it's part horror, part hallucination, very, very fast read, very much in the category of unreliable narrator novels, and that we're not really sure what is real, what is unreal. The sisters' impulses are certainly resolved at the end, but I guess to sum it up, it's sort of classic Gothic fiction by a new master of writing.
That is an amazing list of and titles. I started writing down a few, but I was intrigued by every one. So I'm just going to grab the whole list of titles and what a diverse selection that you gave us of both authors and settings and genres. So thank you so much. We've had a lot of comments on books that people want to read and ones that they've already read. So I think you've provided a great summer reading list for our audience. As a reminder, if you registered for this event, we will send you the titles tomorrow. And if you haven't, you still can simply go to foundation.cmlibrary.org and register for this event. And then we'll send out the list of titles tomorrow. You'll have a complete list. Our branches are open, so if you found a few books that you want to put on hold and go pick up at the library, go to cmlibrary.org and you can put books on hold, and as they come in, we will notify you and you can go pick them up, or you can purchase them at one of our independent bookstores, Main Street Books or Park Road Books. Sherry and Diane, before we go, would you share with us a fall book release that you're looking forward to?
Sure. Should I go first, Sherry, or is that all right?
Sure, take it away.
Alrighty, good. We have so many great books coming in the fall. Big fiction from Ken Follett. We have big histories. We have one of Abe Lincoln, and just any number of great titles for the fall season. But we do have the next novel from Sigrid Nunez. She won the National Book Award for fiction for her novel The Friend about 2 years ago. And if you're not familiar with her style of writing, it's bordering on stream of consciousness. It's what happens to the lead character. You see it in real time in the lead character's eyes. Just brilliant, brilliant writing. And this is, the novel really describes a series of encounters that our lead character, our heroine, as she goes through about a week in her life, and dealing with each of the people that she meets are so unique and so well described. Her novels are fairly brief, but they're so well written, they get right to the point, and you are taken up in her world immediately. So that's probably one of my favorites for the list.
Great.
And again, it's always so hard to narrow down which one is your favorite. But the one I'm picking is Mrs. Benson's Beetle. This is by Rachel Joyce. It will be coming out in at the end of November, so wonderful for the holidays. You may remember her previous book, The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry. I know that was a favorite of a lot of book groups and just had so many fans. In her new novel, it's an uplifting novel about these two women that have absolutely nothing in common, who are trekking across the world in search of a beetle that may possibly not even exist. And as they're doing this, they end up discovering a friendship that defies all the barriers. So you have just, I don't think eccentric is necessarily the word, but they're both very, very colorful characters. There's mystery throughout. You just see how ill prepared they actually were to take this trek, dealing with monsoon rains and just everything that comes across their path. So that's Mrs. Benson's Beetle, and that comes out, and that's releasing as a trade paperback original in November. So enjoy.
Great. Thank you. I just want to remind everyone that we will be giving you more information about Verse and Vino coming up in July. Thank you to Sherry and Diane for reading all these books and giving us such a great selection of our summer reading list. As a reminder, we will be emailing out the list of titles tomorrow. We will also be drawing names for our book giveaway that Penguin Random House has provided for us. And we'll be contacting you about those as well. If you would like to go to our website, foundation.cmlibrary.org, we would love for you to consider making us a gift today as a way to support the library. And also sign up to be on our mailing list. If you are not already on our mailing list, we'd love to include you. We send out an e-newsletter and invite you to other events like this. So I hope that you've enjoyed our program today. Thank you so much for joining us, and happy summer reading.
Thank you all. Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers.